name's Hamish Brookie, and I'll carry on with this presentation. Just excuse me, I'll just grab a glass of water.
Welcome, Mr. Brookie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cooper. Accelerated erosion. Who causes erosion, who benefits, and who loses? Erosion processes are quite simple to understand. The wind generates waves on the top of the water. The water transmits the waves to the foreshore, and the waves break on the foreshore, and the water moves the sediment along the foreshore. If you want to go down to Waitanui, you can see that process in action. That's why the spit at Waitanui is formed. Erosive forces arrive on the lake shore with high winds and high lake levels. Erosive forces cause beach sediments to be moved from the beach. If there is insufficient sediment supply into the lake shore, and the lakeshore erodes. On a hydro lake, the two primary factors that accelerate erosion are water levels and sediment supply. If water levels on the lakeshore increase, erosion increases. If sediment supply to the lakeshore is reduced, erosion increases. On a hydro lake, the actions of man can disturb the natural balance between the wind, the tides, and beach sediments in unexpected and unnatural ways. This is what's happening on Lake Taupo. The situation on an unnatural hydro lake is very different compared to a natural coastal marine environment. In a natural coastal marine environment, factors that influence erosion are natural. In an unnatural hydro lake like Lake Taupo, the factors that influence erosion are unnatural. Let's consider these 2 points as follows. Firstly, the effects of water level control. In the marine coastal environment, tides or water are not influenced by rainfall. Tides fluctuate daily with the moon. On a hydro lake, rainfall does increase water levels. In a coastal marine environment, the wind and waves fluctuate naturally with the seasons. But on a hydro lake, storms, rainfall, high lake levels, and the wind that generate waves and erosive forces are all linked by the management of the hydro lake. Water level control on Lake Taupo involves the activities of Genesis Energy, Mighty River Power, Environment Waikato. Their stakeholders benefit and they all contribute to the erosion problem. Accelerated erosion results. Taupo District is the loser. Second point, sediment starvation of the lakeshore. In all beach environments, the beaches come and go, but on natural stable beaches, erosion movements over time are very, very small. On Lake Taupo, an unnatural hydro lake, managed inappropriately, beaches can rapidly be destroyed. Kuratau, etc., etc. We just see it out there. 10 metres of erosion in 1 year is not natural, and the results are not imperceptibly small. In a natural coastal environment, sediment supply from rivers to the beaches is not disrupted, unlike Lake Taupo. Sediment retention behind the dams on the Hinamaya and the Kuratau rivers restrict sediment supply to the lakeshore by up to 80%. Only 20% of what naturally goes into the lake, into those sediment compartments, is entering into the lake. This is a huge impact on the health of our beaches. Trustpower and King Country Energy cause the problem. Accelerated erosion of the lakeshore results. Trustpower and King Country Energy shareholders benefit, and Taupo District is the loser. On Lake Taupo, it's a logical absurdity to categorise erosion as a natural hazard. The two primary factors that drive accelerated erosion, water level control and sediment starvation, are totally influenced by the actions of man. But these potential unnatural disasters are being defined as natural hazards in the regional and district plans. Why? It's simple. If it's a natural hazard, then only nature is to blame and no one is liable. This is good marketing and it's an abuse of the science. If the sediments from the Hanamaya and the Kuratau dams were released back into the rivers today, it would probably take a decade before the lakeshore recovered. If you want to address accelerated erosion today, fix the lake level issue. The issue will be solved tomorrow. Next, I want to refer to the health of the lake. Since 2003, Mighty River Power commenced operation under the new consent conditions. No, they didn't get consent until 2006, but they started operating the lake in accordance with the consent conditions in 2003. So they commenced operation under the new consent conditions. Just think about this. The incidence of high lake levels and accelerated erosion has increased significantly. The weather is natural. The frequency of storm events has not significantly changed. Sediment starvation has not significantly changed. Lake level management has changed significantly. The anecdotal link between cause and effect is obvious. The big question then is, has the management of Lake Taupo changed since they started operating under the new consent rules in 2003? What I'm going to do now is that I'll just explain these graphs. This here is what's called a frequency distribution curve of water levels on Lake Taupo. This data has been provided to me by Mighty River Power. Okay. This here represents the lake levels across the bottom here, from low level up to a very high level. There's the maximum control level, and there's the mean level. What this diagram says, for example, at that level there, the lake spends 6% of its time at that level. At roughly the mean level, it spends 12% of its time at that level. And obviously down here, the maximum control level, it's 3%. This record is a time record from 1905 to 2003. So it's a very good long record of what happens when it's natural. I asked Mighty River Power to update for me the natural record from 2005 to 2011, and unfortunately that information was not provided because it's not required to be provided under the current consent. Yet, the comparison against natural is a rhetoric that's used in the press very often. Johnny, next one, please. The next line that's gone on here is the time history of what's happened on Lake Taupo from 1968 to 2003. Why have I selected that time period? That time period is the management regime where the double step of lake levels was the control level on Lake Taupo. Remember, we used to have the summer step. During the summer periods or early spring periods, the lake was held at 357.1 for 3 months. And the reason that was there was protection against cyclonic storms that had happened in the future and no doubt are still happening. So what you see, basically now we can actually compare these two regimes, is that here was natural, and you can see when the lake is low, it's lower than what it is natural. But the mean's roughly about the same, and when the lake is high, it's higher than above what it's natural. So, impression is that what's the general impressions about what's happened on Lake Taupo since 2003? When you go and talk to people, you get two stories. One story is saying the lake has been very low, I can't get my boat in. And the other story is the lake has been very high and it's causing erosion. Funny. Johnny, please. Excellent. This here is now the diagram with the recent regime that's occurred since 2003. And you can see that it is the really heavy line here. So you can see the operation of the lake has changed significantly since the consent came into effect basically in 2003. When the lake is low, it is much lower than what it was natural, and it is very much lower than what it was pre-consent. And when the lake is high, it's much higher than what it was pre-consent and natural. If you just have a look at that point there, 357, I can't quite read that, but at that level there, under the recent regime, the lake would have spent 22 days per annum at that level on average. Today, under this, it is 55 days. 55 days. So the lake has been held higher for longer, and in combination with high winds, accelerated erosion results. What's really horrible here is there's a double whammy. Is that when the lake is high, the lake foreshores are rebuilding. And when it's calm, and here, at lower levels, the lake is rebuilding. So if you spend more time eroding than you spend rebuilding, you get net overall erosion. The beaches flatten and the erosion migrates inland. Next I want to talk about Mighty River Power's resource concerns.